Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Sonnet Stream. Tonight, we have some special guests joining us. We're going to be talking to military veterans and long-term recovery. My name is Liz Barton. I'm the Senior Vice President at Sonnet Lake Recovery over marketing and business development. I'm going to go ahead and get started tonight by introducing Shane Warshall. Shane, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Shane Warshaw. I'm an Army veteran, and I am currently the assistant manager of the contact center here at Sonnet Lake Recovery.
Thank you. Dylan?
My name is Dylan Bragg, formerly Staff Sergeant Bragg of the United States Army, and I'm a part of the maintenance team with Sonnet Lake.
Thank you. Scott?
My name is Scott McKinney, formerly Sergeant McKinney, United States Marine Corps in long-term recovery. I'm an executive vice president with Sonnet Lake.
Thank you. Tonight we're talking about, Sonnet Lake, and you're a part of this team alongside us as veterans of our armed forces. What inspired you, based on your background, to join us at Sonnet Lake? And we'll start again with Shane on that. So what inspired you to come to Sonnet Lake and work here and be a part of this team?
So I've been working in the treatment field for quite some time now. The past 2 years has been the first time I've actually been on the contact center admission side. The biggest thing for me is that first phone call that I made when I needed to get clean and I needed to do something for myself. I heard another addict on the other end of the line. And it was somebody for the first time who understood what I was going through. It was the first time they didn't judge me, and someone that gave me hope that there was a better way to live. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to go into this aspect, because I wanted to be that first voice for people to know there is a better way.
Thank you. What a great story. Dylan?
I chose to begin my career here at Sonnet Lake. I still very much want to help people. For 7 years, my business was leading and training soldiers. And over my course of time in the service, I went through a great deal of a lot of really bad things. And I didn't process them. I didn't deal with them. And they eventually caught up to me, just like they do to everybody else. And I thought that I had something to offer. And I just really, that is taking care of my daughter and then helping people. Those are, I feel full at the end of the day if I'm able to do that. So that's why I really love working for Sonnet Lake.
Thank you. Scott?
Outside of the Marine Corps, I've always been geared towards some kind of service industry. The places I find myself that were not geared in that way weren't fulfilling, and I'd often be looking for something else. And I had the opportunity to get involved with an outpatient program many years ago. And the way I saw it was, doing kind of similar things, helping people, but helping a much more vulnerable population. 10 years ago or longer, probably with more stigma around it, less resources available. And I was fortunate enough that kind of hit a collision course with Sonnet Lake. But ultimately, the answer is just to help other people.
Thank you. Your stories are really awesome for me to hear. Prior to coming to Sonnet Lake, I was fortunate to work on the veteran helpline as well as the Share the Load hotline for first responders. So I get to spend a lot of hours, especially during the night, talking to soldiers who have had many experiences. Most of them were related to substance use disorder. And obviously, all of you are in long-term recovery. So, it's something that's near and dear to my heart, too, is helping others. But this was a population that really stood out to me based on their experience, but also what they've done for me as an American citizen. And so I really worked very hard to make sure that I was working, to make sure I was providing good resources. And something I found was it was hard to get care for veterans. It wasn't like somebody on the street that had private health insurance and different things like that. So of course it was harder for me to get them help. And it also sometimes could take a very long time for them to get into care. So I want to talk a little bit about that in regards to your experience, what it was like for you when it was time to reach out for help. And what did that look like for you? And what could have been some of the common barriers or the reasons why you didn't want to get help, or maybe you almost had a barrier to not getting help? So like I said, from my past experience, and I can tell you that sometimes it was weeks for me to be able to find treatment for somebody that was a veteran under, especially TRICARE, which we're now in network with at Sonnet Lake. Shane, would you like to kind of talk about that experience and, what it means for you?
Yeah. So for me, it was very difficult to even reach out and admit that I had a problem. And a big reason for that is, I think just like there is kind of a stigma on addicts. When it comes to a lot of military personnel, I think we're viewed as these very strong, broad individuals who don't have weaknesses and can't show vulnerability and everything like that. So a lot of times, in basic training, you fall down or something, it's rub some dirt in it and run it off. You just kind of pick yourself up and go. So a big thing for me is I didn't want to show that vulnerability. I didn't want to admit that there was something wrong with me and that I needed help with, because I could figure everything out on my own. And it led to years and years of just continually going down that hole until I had hit that bottom. And that was probably one of my biggest barriers. And when I finally reached out, it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And I think that for myself, like that was my biggest form of strength, is just finally admitting like, hey, I need help. And that's what I finally got.
How was that process for you? Whenever you finally made that call, was it an easy process for you to get the help that you need?
I was very fortunate enough that my mother was a huge help for me getting the treatment that I needed. She kind of did all the research and figured everything out. But when I was trying to, even not necessarily the substance abuse, but just my mental health, trying to go through the VA and trying to figure out things for myself was a very tedious process. And I know it may not be for everybody, but I know that's one of the biggest struggles for people, is trying to get through with the resources that we're given aren't always as up to date or even helpful as they should be. So it was a struggle for a while. But luckily, when I was able to finally pick up that phone and take that next step, it was a pretty seamless process, and I'm grateful for it.
Dylan, would you agree with some of the things that he's talking about?
Absolutely, 100%. Like sitting here, it's very close to mine. The same feelings, just it's a level of vulnerability that we as soldiers are not comfortable with, because in the service it is socially acceptable to work hard, play hard. You go through a whole whatever, you go into the field, you deploy, whatever it may be. After that, you're going to have fun. And whenever you have a problem that you're struggling with, the last thing that you want to do is go to someone and be like, hey, I need help, because we don't ask for help, and my experience was very difficult. It was very humiliating. And but at the same time, it was very humbling, because that was a crossroads in my life. Like I was maturing, because like I feel like your 20s are just teenage years with added responsibility, so yeah, I had to pull my head out of my can, as my granddad would say. So
Scott, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you've heard ringing the bell, right? That's the quitting, right? So that signifies defeat, failure in the military. I think that's kind of bred into us. So it feeds ego, and I think initially, kind of echoing what they're saying, acknowledging that you have a problem is kind of acknowledging defeat, which defies kind of the ego and belief system that we kind of been ingrained in us, which it's also helped us survive or helped us thrive in those roles. So I 100% agree with that. I think my biggest obstacle was ego. The second thing was just the healthcare system, the VA system that's available. Prior to ever recognizing I had a problem and needed help, I already had experiences with the VA. And one of those stories was sitting in a storage closet for like 3 hours past my appointment time. So the last place I thought of reaching out to, for help would be the VA hospital. The other part is anybody that has kind of VA benefits, TRICARE, some of those things. If that's not a useful source for them, then they're going to go elsewhere, and they might not accept those forms of resources. So now you're looking at an out-of-pocket expense. So that was my experience. So this isn't really an option. I'll go pay out of pocket. Now I've drained accounts and I've got all this, money in this now. And so ideally, which is something Sauna Lake, I'm sure you'll talk about it later, but now accepting TRICARE, the more facilities that accept those resources, the more options people have. And I think the more likely they are to get the care they need. People need different stuff if they're looking for different stuff. And, just think of geographic convenience of VA hospitals. There's 2 in St. Louis. I know there's outpatient clinics, but I don't know where those are all located. But it might not make sense when there's an outpatient right down the road that they could go to had they, accepted TRICARE or something. So.
Absolutely. And it's actually a good lead into my next question that I had. Scott, you played an instrumental part in us getting the Humana TRICARE East benefit at Sauna Lake. What does that mean to you as a veteran for us to be able to help those with TRICARE and their family members? Why was it so important to you?
I think it's awesome that we're helping veterans. I think veterans need as much help as everybody else. I still belong to circles of guys that I served with or are from kind of the same units and stuff like that. And it's cool in those units, you're starting to see the farther away from the military institutionalization they are, the more open they are talking about some of the stuff they're dealing with, whether it's mental health or substance use problems. But traditionally, like a lot of those guys, they're all over the United States, and there might not be one place to send them to. But I had actually traveled to Warder's Heart, which is a facility out in Bandera, Texas, which was completely oriented around veterans. And there's not a lot of other programs that accept TRICARE and what's the other one?
Optum, TriWest.
Well, there's TRICARE, VA, and something else, I think. But anyways,
VA choice.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But anyway, so I think it's the more, like I said, the more resources we can offer veterans, the better. Right? There's lots of, everybody's different. Their needs are different. Where they live is different. Some people wouldn't be able to travel to Texas to go for 60 days. And if they did, what are they going to do following that? We know what the recidivism looks like without ongoing care. So, the more resources, the better.
Absolutely. Dylan, I know for you, we talked a little bit about your background prior to this. And, when it came time for treatment, what would it have meant for you to have TRICARE, with TRICARE, to have a choice in your treatment and also be able to go to a treatment provider like Sauna Lake?
That would have meant the world. My treatment took place while I was actually still in the service. And so whenever you ask a vet about the VA, they usually have a few choice words. And the thing about the VA or within the service, it's a very blanketed style of care. There is no individualized care. And, us as vets, we were very much trained to operate at a different level from your average civilian walking down the street. So to have that individualized care, it's that much more chance of success, and that just means the world, because I didn't even have that option. It was very much like going back to basic training, locked up, supervised. And for them to have something like out at our Dittmer facility, just being in nature, being outside, a really good atmosphere, good people, and, a care that is specific to them, whether it be alcohol or whatever it may be, that's just, I think it's great. Since day one at being at Sauna, I've been wondering, do they take TRICARE? Are we going to take TRICARE? So now that we are, it's just I'm just very happy about it. And I can't wait to see vets come out, and I got a closet full of flags. So everyone that comes through, I'll just give them a flag, as a graduation present. So I'm very excited, very excited.
Can I ask a question, Dylan?
Yes, sir.
Your experience going to treatment while still in the military, you say that it was like basic training again, which if you wrap that up, what that means is no respect, no compassion, no individuality, right?
No, exactly. That's how it was. I returned from deployment at Valentine's Day of 2018, and it was a little bit after. It was really right after Memorial Day weekend. I marched myself into my command's office and I asked for help. And they sent me to, at the time, we had ASAP, which was Army Substance Abuse Program. They were closed. I went to Womack Hospital on Fort Bragg, and I was locked up on the crazy floor. And then from there, I was sent to Fort Gordon, Georgia, at Eisenhower Hospital, and that's where I spent the next 31 days. And then following that, I did a 9-week intensive outpatient program. So it was very, very, it was good because I am the kind of person that I need that structure, but for it, what works for me doesn't work for everyone, And then the pride, I had a first sergeant tell me, First Sergeant Anthony Gregerson, he said the number one killer of all soldiers was not complacency, it was pride. We let our pride get in the way, just like you said earlier about ego and pride. It's hand in hand. And, it's our journey. Everybody has a journey.
Shane, you talked earlier about having some family support and how your mom really helped you find that care. Most people don't have that. And you're in the contact center, so you hear this quite a bit. What does that look like for somebody calling in, talking to you from the contact center, and how do you support them being a veteran if they're calling in with TRICARE?
Yeah, like I said, I know I was very, very lucky that I had the support from my mother. And I also want to say, like, when it comes to that, support can be many different things. Yes, my mother did help me do research and get me into a facility and help with the costs and everything. She also refused to let me be in the house. She also kept me away from some of the family while I was in active addiction to make me see the damages that I was causing. I think a lot of times it gets difficult and the lines get blurred as far as what's helping or hurting. And just like Dylan said, what helps one person might not help another. So what my mother did for me may not have helped Scott, but there's many different forms of support. And as far as like hearing phone calls and having people call in, that's one of the biggest reliefs I hear from a lot of people when they've called in and spoken to somebody. Again, hearing somebody else who understands. For so long going on thinking that they don't have any hope, that there's no better way to live. And there's been quite a few people that I've talked to who had a history similar to mine and, had really good conversations as far as just talking sometimes, just like this, just like, hey, I've been there, I've done that. I know how you feel. It's okay. And there is a better way. It's been brought up a couple times, that individualized plan as far as each person needing what they need. That's a huge advantage that not a lot of places offer, whether it be a psychiatric facility or sometimes it's just other treatment centers in general, where it's the same thing day in, day out, no matter who you are, what you've done, everything like that. So having that individualized treatment plan is one of the biggest things that helped me along my way as well. Because I was different than Johnny down the street. So what they did for him, that wouldn't have helped me.
Shane, you have a unique story because you're different than a lot of people. And I will say this, and you went to treatment one time and you met long-term recovery. What was your aftercare like to make sure that you're maintaining your recovery off of that? Because that's not national average. National average is what, 9 times for somebody to meet recovery. Why were you different that way?
I mean, the biggest thing for me, I was done when I finally went to treatment. You know, and I can't say like it's where I went, because at the end of the day, my recovery depends on my attitude and how hard I want to work for it. But the aftercare plan I had with the facility I went to, you know, I did my 30 days of a quote unquote inpatient type care. And then I followed up with, it was a couple months of some intensive outpatient, followed with generalized outpatient. So I went through exactly what it was. You know, I started with inpatient, then I moved on to the next level of care. I got involved with, you know, sober living, and stayed in there long enough until I knew I was ready, until others believed I was ready to take that next step. And that right there, that was my biggest reasoning for success, is I listened. You know, I took the cotton out of my ears and I stuck it in my mouth. And I just listened to people around me, the experience, strength, and hope of others. And I took it to heart and made it my own. And that's my biggest reason for success, in my opinion.
It's amazing. Scott, we're going to talk a little bit, because obviously you were instrumental in getting TRICARE here and the importance of TRICARE. What do you think makes us different from other providers, and why would somebody choose Sonnet Lake over somebody else?
Well, I think that's what I kind of was speaking to, asking Dylan that question. You know, from a veteran's perspective, respect, compassion, individual treatment plan. You know, outside of all the great things that Sonnet Lake does, I mean, Sonnet Lake is evidence-based, and, you know, we're really focused on recovery for life, which I think would benefit veterans or anybody, regardless of the level of care somebody comes in at, that we're, you know, supporting them more so than other programs that are out there. If you look at I would call it quality dense treatment. If you look at your typical treatment, the amount of services and support and resources that Sonnet Lake throws at every single member is astonishing, whether that's while they're at residential or detox, or they're outpatient, or they're not any of those things, and they're just a member for life, attending events and still being supported by peers and clinical recovery coaches. I know we only have an hour, so I'm going to make that. There's lots of things that make Sonnet Lake great. It's different than any treatment center I've ever seen. Obviously, I'm going to give a biased answer, but that's an honest answer. It really is a pretty spectacular organization.
Very good. Megan's actually letting us know that we have a question. Aiden asked, were there things you learned in the military that helped you in your recovery? Dylan, do you want to start with that, and then we can go around and everybody can add in?
Discipline, first and foremost, because that's what has gotten me as far as I have been, you know, is discipline and personal accountability, and just taking action and being proactive over being reactive, and just, you know, just never accepting defeat. Like, you know, Scott said, just don't give in. You know, there's a lot of good qualities that I learned in the service that I use every day in recovery, 100%. There's also a lot of bad too, so we just try to forget. No, you know.
I agree with that. Some of the stuff, you know, some of the schools or experiences that you have in the military, you have to push yourself or force yourself to do some pretty crazy things that defy logic or self preservation. And I think, you know, you know, that translates into recovery well. I also think the ego that comes with that doesn't. So you still need a program, you still need recovery. But I do think that discipline is a big benefit.
Sorry about that. I definitely agree with that. I I'm gonna go a little outside the box. Respecting the chain of command, kind of treating my sponsorship family almost like my chain of command. When I had an issue or when I was going through something, picking up the phone and calling my sponsor. Same thing with other addicts in recovery. It wasn't just my sponsor. Learning to rely on others was a huge thing as well. When I was out in the field, with my other comrades, like I had to trust they had my six. Just like in recovery, I got to trust that if I'm having a bad day and I pick up that phone, someone's going to pick it up.
100%.
Scott, you talked about Members for Life earlier. After you got out of your treatment program, whatever that looked like for you, did you have a program like Members for Life, or what did you do to help you on your path to recovery?
I just had AA. So, all the things that come with AA, home group and sponsor and, the different events that AA puts on. But I went to an outpatient center first, but I still had an ego then. So I had to have my ego dismantled in some pretty rough ways before I found, AA and the 12-step program. So I would say yes and no. There's no actual aftercare program, but.
Okay. Dylan, what have you done for yourself? So past your treatment at the hospital that you were in, what helped you maintain your long-term recovery? And what does that look like today for you?
My life revolves around my daughter, because within my addiction, I felt like I failed as a father. And whenever I was able to lift the fog of the substances, I realized that the substances were not my problem. Dylan, I am my problem. My thought process, my behavior, my attitude, and I knew what I had to fix. And being a dad, that is my life 100%. And that is what drives me every day to be better than I was yesterday. And I'll never quit, because if at that point, if I quit on her, and that is not acceptable. No, ma'am. So, having a purpose, whether you're, a dad, a mother, a son, I have a disabled mom that, I'm responsible for. So I have people that depend on me and that love me, and I need to be here for them. And I'll be damned if drugs or alcohol is going to take me away from them. Absolutely not.
Would you both kind of agree with that? That, family, faith, friends, your recovery family is your purpose, and what's helping you?
Absolutely. I know it didn't get me clean, but it's definitely helped stay clean. I know I made a lot of mistakes as a father, as a son, as a friend, while I was using. And just because I had a son and just because I had a mother doesn't mean that was going to get me to stop using. But it's definitely something that, since I've been clean, it's always in the back of my head, and I don't want to give it up for any of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've had that thought before. I've also heard the saying, no child's love is greater than the power of, addiction or whatever. I don't know what the exact saying is. So I've put that in my head as well. But it certainly helps. I'm grateful that my kids will never have to see me drink or use a drug if I do the right things. So that's motivating. I could just as easily be the opposite, where they do. I also know that I could still be a dad with my same crazy thought patterns and logic, bad behavior. I'm the problem. To Dylan's point, I agree with that. I could still be the problem as a father too. So I still have to hyper focus on that. And I agree the substance is a symptom of that, of those other issues. So, as long as, if you're green, you're growing. If you're not, you're dying. It's kind of what I follow. I'm either doing something to grow or I'm not. Sometimes I do more, sometimes I do less, but as long as the ball's rolling, I'm doing the right thing. So.
Thank you. Dylan, you talked to me, earlier this week that, during your military time in active duty specifically, you saw people that obviously were struggling with this disease, other than yourself. So today, if there's people out there, veterans that are struggling, what hope could you provide to them? What words of wisdom would you provide to them?
There's a better way to live. There really is. I mean, it's for me, it's as simple as that, and how do you want to be remembered? Whenever you leave this world, how do you want to be remembered? And my grandpa always told me to be a man of honor, and you just, whenever you're lost in your addiction, you're not you. You do things out of character. You hurt people. You make mistakes. I mean, granted, we all make mistakes all the time, but you're not whole. And whenever you are able to get, see how life should be for you, it's wonderful. It's like the colors are brighter. It's as cliche as that. You look at the world in an entirely different perspective. And to all those, that are struggling with this, quit waiting. There is no time like the present, and like Scott said, if you're not growing, you're dead, or however he said it. That's how I've always looked at it. If you're not growing, you're dead, and if you're not trying to be a better human being, then it sounds terrible. Then what are you doing? And I'm kind of ruthless when I say that, but people are dying every day because of this, because they feel helpless, they feel hopeless, they don't have anybody, they think they don't have anybody, and I can assure you, you do. Somebody loves you, and there are those who would love to help you, and don't waste any more time. Just get after it. Let's do it.
Scott, what words of wisdom would you offer?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, one of the greatest parts of recovery is that a good day is good and a bad day is manageable. That is not true when we're using. It is a roller coaster ride. There are super highs and super lows, and you just got to hang on and ride the roller coaster. But in recovery, you don't have that as much. It's more flat. It is good days and manageable bads. And our CEO Paul saying it's awesome but getting better. You can only say that, and he'll say that. Sometimes you can tell he means it. Sometimes he's forcing it out. But every day is awesome and getting better. So on those bad days, you can still say that. It's awesome and getting better, or it's awesome and it's getting better. And I think that's the greatest gift that recovery gives us, honestly, because those bad days, I can get through those. I don't have to pick up a drink or a drug. I don't have to lose face. I don't have to be the person I don't want to be. And I'll get through it. It's not that bad. And good days are actually enjoyable and appreciated, and you can have gratitude for them and enjoy life. I don't think that anything but sobriety gives you that.
Shane, do you have anything on that?
I agree a lot with everything that's been said. There is, after as much time as I've gained in recovery, there's not a single thing that I can go through today that using is going to make better. None whatsoever. I might feel better for a couple minutes or an hour at most, but I'm going to come right back, and then I'm going to feel worse because I've used again. My biggest thing, I kind of started off saying it as well, is like one of our biggest vulnerabilities. Like, it's okay to ask for help. Don't try to pride yourself too much thinking that you can handle this and that, everything's going to be fine. And, just because other people might be doing the same thing means that everything's okay. We're all different. If you think that something's not right, chances are something's not right.
Thank you. Would anybody like to add anything to that before we get off the podcast tonight? Or does anybody else want to say anything about, what we're doing?
Well, if you're a veteran and you don't want to talk to another one, we got one in the contact center. Ask for Shane.
Oh,
sorry, Shane.
I know that Shane's always, Shane's somebody that's available. Obviously, he's always willing to talk to people and he does a great job at that. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for your service to this country. We actually have another question from Kevin. Do you think that listening to, learning from people in recovery can help those struggling with mental illness issues?
100%.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I'd strongly agree with that.
And excuse me, let's talk about that just for a second because, sometimes people, especially when I used to answer the line, so many people would say, I have PTSD or I have something, depression, anxiety, whatever it is that they feel that they have. And that might be or may not be the reason that they're using substance. I used to hear quite a bit that, I was using methamphetamine to stay awake, or I was taking benzos to go to sleep, or, I was drinking excessively just so I didn't have to listen, to what was going on in my mind. Now, obviously, I don't want to trigger anything by asking that, but we're talking about mental illness. And, something I think at Sauna Lake that we do well is treating mental illness, not just the substance use. And so, talking to you all, and you've talked about ego and you've talked about so many different amazing words tonight that you have to swallow your pride. But something, did you work on your mental health? And do you continue to work on that every single day?
So I'll answer that, or at least first. Recovery saved my life, but also for mental health. So I went through a period of depression and stuff that was pretty bad, and really gratitude that I learned in recovery. I learned in the rooms. I learned about gratitude lists, and I made them. And that stupid little list that was made of paper and pencil, whatever that graphite is it's not lead now, but whatever that is, very simple. And the things I put on there were nothing, outside of normal daily things, literally saved my life. So 100%, I think recovery benefits, and addiction, substance use doesn't happen in a vacuum very often. So, and the worst case scenario is you get into a place that has providers and people that care about you and are capable of helping you with that. So.
Yeah, I can definitely touch on that. Even today, I'm coming up on almost 7 years clean, and I have been seeing a therapist. I actually recently got set up with a psychiatrist. When I went through treatment, I did EMDR to help with PTSD. In the rooms and going to meetings and working on steps and doing all that stuff is all well and good. And it's very helpful to all of us addicts, alcoholics, and all that. But sometimes there's things that still need to be taken care of for us outside of the rooms. So seeing a provider and getting mental health helped with is a huge thing. I'm sure you guys, I have Tourette's, so like you might have seen me making some tics. That's something that I was self-conscious about for years. But identifying my problems and talking about it is what has helped me continue with my recovery and to help myself with my mental health.
One thing that I have learned within recovery is as long as I am talking and I'm getting the things out, they don't hold a power over me. And I know that sounds kind of wild, but within my addiction, I thought I was one of a kind. I thought I was unique. I thought I was the unicorn running around North Carolina. And whenever I got in those rooms and I got in those meetings, I learned that I was one of many. And if I would just open up and start talking, then I would realize that, I can learn something from this gentleman. I can learn something from that young lady. And, I have appointments with psychologists, psychiatrists through the VA, monthly, and, allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to talk about things that bother you, or, you feel ashamed of, or you hold guilt, you have to let those go. because if you hold them inside of you, they will eat you alive, and that's unacceptable. And for those struggling with PTSD, with on your deployment or whatever it may be, and you have to get that out, because the longer you hold it in, the worse it's going to be. It's a ticking time bomb, and it's going to explode. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but it will. And, you have to diffuse that before that happens.
Do you think mental health can be an addiction also?
I think anything that takes you out of your current mental state can be addictive, and that can be anything. It does not have to be a substance. It can be anything: shopping, video games, guns, whatever it may be. And, I am an addict. I am the pure definition of an addict. I have, at one time or another, been addicted to anything and everything, and I have to check myself every day. And you learn that in recovery, that it wasn't, it says in the book, it wasn't the substance, it was our reaction to that substance. And that's the thing, is we all at one time feel like we're stuck and we can't get out, with depression, and you can get out. You just have to fight for it. It's not going to be given to you. Recovery was not given to me. I earned it, and I earn it every single day.
Thank you. Scott, do you think mental health can be addiction also? What are your thoughts to that? Do you think that can become an addiction?
I guess I'm not really understanding that question. The treatment of it itself becoming an addiction?
The way we are with our mental health and not getting treatment, can that become an addiction?
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with what Dylan just said. It's a bomb, and it'll blow up if you don't diffuse it. That's what it is. I don't know that I'd call it an addiction.
Okay. That's why I'm asking that, because it's different thought processes. Something I read, and this was a book that was written by Michael Cartwright, who I used to work for, and it was called Believable Hope. And he talked about his substance use disorder and how he traded one substance for another. Have any of you experienced that in working, your programs, that you found yourself having to work multiple programs based on maybe a new addiction that's come forward?
Yes.
I mean, I could definitely relate to that. Certainly. But the 12 steps, if you're in a 12-step program, pretty generalized across life, I think. And you'll see that most of those different programs are 12-step programs. But yeah, I think, you got to work your recovery every day, and that's why you do an inventory, and things change, and you continue to be the same person if you don't continually check yourself.
Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and close out for this evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's such a blessing every day to get to work with each of you. Thank you for what you've done for our country and continue to do for all of those in, needing recovery or helping them meet recovery. And just thank you for joining me tonight. I would say, leaving this tonight, if anybody does have a substance use disorder that they're looking for help, please reach out. Even if we're not the right fit for you, we will help you find the care that you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Privilege. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.